In the remote hills of Appalachia, where the fog rolls thick and the pine trees lean in like eavesdropping old men, lies the forgotten town of Mosswood. There are no paved roads leading in anymore, just a crumbling dirt path that twists through shadow and silence. Most maps don't mark it, most folks don't ask. But Daniel did. He was a photographer chasing stories of dying towns for a gritty indie travel magazine. Mosswood came up in a drunken conversation with a backwoods bartender, muttered like a curse between sips of whiskey. "Don't go there," the man warned. "Some places get left behind for a reason." Daniel smiled. That kind of talk was exactly what he looked for. He arrived late in the afternoon. The forest around Mosswood felt heavier than any he'd been through, thick with the smell of damp earth and decay. The trees groaned in the wind, their limbs mossy and overgrown. At first glance, the town looked like any other long-abandoned settlement. Collapsed cabins, rusted fences, and glassless windows that stared like blind eyes. But it wasn't empty. As Daniel stepped onto Main Street, he saw a man watching him from the second-floor window of the old general store. The figure didn't move, didn't blink, just stared. Daniel raised a hand in greeting but got no response. He pressed on. The deeper he explored, the more strange things became. The buildings weren't as dilapidated as they should have been. Some looked preserved, like someone had been keeping them up. One house even had fresh candles burning in the windows. He took photos, dozens of them. As he reviewed the shots on his camera, he noticed something odd. In the background of every image, no matter the angle, a pale woman in a tattered grey dress appeared. Sometimes she was behind a tree, other times in a window. Always just out of focus. He didn't remember seeing her with his eyes. That night, Daniel set up camp just outside the town. His fire barely flickered against the encroaching blackness of the woods. The night was too quiet. No insects, no owls. Just the rhythmic creaking of trees that almost sounded like whispering. Around midnight, he woke to the sound of bells. Faint, distant, but unmistakable. They chimed in a slow, deliberate pattern, like a ritual. Daniel grabbed his flashlight and followed the sound back into Mosswood. At the center of the town was an old church, its steeple sagging and cross askew. The doors were open. Inside, the pews were full. People sat silently. Men, women, and children dressed in worn, old-fashioned clothes. All of them motionless, heads bowed. At the altar stood the pale woman from the photographs. Her eyes were black, her lips sewn shut with twine. In her hands, she held a moss-covered book that pulsed as if it were alive. The congregation began to hum, a droning vibration that grew louder until Daniel thought his skull might split. He staggered back and stepped on a twig. The sound stopped. Hundreds of heads turned toward him at once, eyes glowing faintly in the dark. He ran. Branches clawed at his face as he fled through the woods. The forest felt wrong, like it was shifting around him. No matter how far he ran, he always found himself back on Main Street. Exhausted and breathless, he collapsed at the town's edge and woke up in daylight. His camera was gone. His phone was dead. The town looked deserted again. No signs of life, no congregation, just decaying wood and moss-covered stone. He walked the 5 miles back to his car and drove until the mountains vanished in his rearview mirror. When he finally got to a diner with working cell service, he borrowed a charger and turned on his phone. There were photos, dozens of them, but none were the shots he remembered taking. Each was a grainy black and white image of him. Sleeping, walking, standing in the middle of the congregation, eyes closed, lips sewn shut with twine,